And that's kind of why I moved here is I love the seasons, but it's a very mellow winter here. So that's really appealing to me. So we get these huge snowstorms and it might be cold and icy and 0 degrees for a week. And then in a couple of days, the snow is completely melted and the trails are dry and you can get back out and run. And yeah, so that was really appealing to me when I moved here, because you could have these beautiful snow covered flat irons. And then a few days later, you're back to sunshine and being able to run on the roads. And, coming from the Midwest, that did not happen. So.
If I could ask you to introduce yourself to our viewers, let's first talk about you're a realtor in the awesome state of Colorado. Yeah. And so tell us, how did you get into real estate? How long you've been doing it? And what do you kind of focus on in today's market? Just in general.
Yeah, for sure. So I am a broker associate realtor at a brokerage called Mile High Modern here in Colorado. It's we have a bunch of offices, but I work out of the Boulder offices and I work just along the Front Range. So really all the way from like South Denver up towards Longmont areas and really in the mountains and everywhere in between. Okay. So all over. And I got into real estate 7 years ago. I used to be an elementary education teacher. Did that for 5 years, taught second grade, first grade, kindergarten, and just got a little bit burnt out on that. So real estate was actually a really great transition for me because I found myself still helping people, just not children. It was more helping people find their homes and educating through that process versus life skills.
Yeah, right. And I have to say something. Like your website for Mile High Modern is, and I hate to give them credit because it says right on there, like the cool real estate folks or the cool realtors, but your site is really well put together. So congratulations to whoever did that. That looks really good.
Thank you. That's one of the reasons I was drawn to this brokerage is they really do have a luxury experience. Everything they do is top of the line. So for all listings that we bring to market, it's very, the photography is great. The narratives are great. Everything behind the scenes is just really top notch. So when you're listing your home with us, it just really is like, I feel the best of the best.
It seems like an experience. It's not like a transaction. Yes. It's like, bring me in and take over for me and let me ride.
Exactly.
So, well, I appreciate you talking to us, and thanks to Ben Robinson, who connected us, one of our advisors, awesome team member I work with every day. And he said, I think I have an awesome person for you. And he uses the word awesome as much as I do, by the way. So he's like, I think I have an awesome person for you to talk to. And when he introduced us, I thought this is a perfect fit. So thank you for doing this. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was we have a lot of retirees. We don't work only with retirees, but the bulk of what folks we work with are, on the doorstep of retirement or they're already in it. And when they're doing that transition, they suddenly, cut the ties that are tethering them to a specific location. Oftentimes they think of, or they've been yearning for that time where they can kind of pick up and move or chase their kids around the country, because their kids are probably adults, most of them, and moving on with their careers and their lives. Or an investment property, or probably the most common is like a second home, sort of a fun place, whether it's a snowbird idea or whatever. And Colorado is definitely one of those destination points that folks here in Pennsylvania, which is mostly where we work, a lot of Missouri, Cincinnati, Ohio stuff. They want to either go south and get warm or go to Colorado and have some fun. Yep. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you, Lauren, is, and I'm 52 as I'm filming this, and I'm not nearly ready to do that yet, but it's starting to creep in my mind. Like, what would I do when I'm in their situation, And that's really a lot of our job, is trying to get in the minds of our clients. And what we start thinking about is, at what point is it that when do you want someone to contact a realtor? when they realize, I think I wrote some things down here. Like, does somebody contact you when they say, I don't know, I think Colorado seems kind of nice, and then they call you? Or do you want somebody to call you and say, I have very specific place in Colorado, I have very specific square footage and amenities that I want or I don't want? Like when do you think it's ideal for them to reach out to you and start that dialogue?
So, I mean, obviously, if they know what they want, then that's great. But my job is to help people figure out what they want. So if they don't know, that's totally fine. That's where where I can provide value, is helping them dial in what they're looking for, where that might be. Bedroom, bathroom, square footage, does it need a garage, a yard? That's where my value comes into play. So if they've already gone through that process and they have it set in their head, then great, that's totally fine. But part of my consultation when people come to buy a home is figuring out and kind of dialing that in, so that we're not, going through a process of elimination and looking at literally everything on the market, but hopefully dialing in what they want during the buyer consultation and over a first couple of meetings, and maybe them doing some research and driving around, is then we have, okay, this is what I want. And then it's more of like, these are my top rolling 3, and we can kind of cross them off after we've seen each one. But it's not then like we have hundreds of homes in this funnel that we've already kind of narrowed it down for them. So ideally, great if they have it dialed in. But again, they don't have to. Again, that's where my value comes into play, is that I can help them figure that out.
Like, I think we have very similar roles that we help clients with, because a lot of times when people come to us, they feel like, I'd like to talk to you because I'd like to know more information, but I'm not ready to retire today. And we usually, like, a lot of our clients are 3 to 5 to even 10 years away from retirement. So whenever you feel like talking, it's probably a good time. It sounds like you're kind of in that mode as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell them, I mean, if we have this meeting, there's never any pressure to buy in the next 6 months or even the next year, or to ever buy if it doesn't happen that way. But you can't really start the process or be serious about it if you don't know or don't have all of the information.
Yeah. Yeah. I just told this story to my team today. We had a team call, and I said, as you know, I just got back from Florida, and just for the heck of it, we were on a real estate site, and my wife looked, and the real estate site immediately sent a realtor after her on the email. Yep. And she said, we're not ready, but he said, I definitely want to show you. I want to show you why you're down here. Let me take you and show you some homes. So we thought, sure, what the heck? And what I was telling my team today was, there were 2 things that like kind of shocked me. Number one was, whenever I asked things about like HOA fees or additional taxes, or what kind of insurance issues are there, and they didn't really know the answers. And they'd pick up the sheet at the home we were at that was on the countertop, and they kind of like, well, why don't you give me a list of your questions and I'll get you answers later. And I thought, that's crazy. Like, it wasn't rocket science stuff. I was asking some pretty basic things. Yep. And then at the end of the day, I thought the realtor would have said, thank you so much. I know you're not in the market today, but let's keep in touch. Instead, he couldn't wait to get to the next appointment. And as a matter of fact, the last house we looked at, he never got the code, so we never got to go in the house.
Oh my
gosh.
Then
he got to, and I thought, I know it wasn't a sale today, but you never know. And he missed a great opportunity to make a relationship to a couple that could very likely become buyers. And it just struck me as odd. So I love that approach that you're saying, like, hey, start a dialogue with me. Let me build a database of what you're looking for, and start broad and narrow down eventually. And the time is not as critical, I guess, is what you're saying.
Right. No, definitely not. I mean, that's the last thing I want, is for anyone to regret a very quick decision because they weren't ready. So the more they feel comfortable, the better I feel about it too. Their success is my success at the end of the day. Yeah,
that's a good way to put it. So what about, like, I'm picking up the phone, I'm calling Lauren Daniels, I'm excited about this, and I say, I kind of know I want to move to this area of Colorado, and I'm looking for certain amenities and things like that. What are some things that you think are critical? I mean, I wrote some things down here that I thought were critical, and I don't know if you agree with them, but like the economics of the community you're moving into. And I'll use an example of, I walked on some properties this past week on my trip that unless I'm throwing a football or, some sort of professional athlete, or I'm selling my music online or something, like I'm probably not affording those houses. And so I think people sometimes move into an area because it's just amazing, and they try really hard to get into that and afford it. And then they struggle to stay there because the cost of living is high. And they don't think about that. Do you see people make that mistake? Can you recognize that? Maybe try to talk them to something that's more of a better fit as subtly as you can?
That's a lot of the conversations that I'm having these days, just because the market that I am currently in is, an expensive market here in the Boulder proper, Boulder County area. Okay. And so also with interest rates being at that like 7%, it's higher than clients are used to. And the 2 and 3% were never normal, and we'll probably never go back to that. But we are hoping for a little bit of relief here coming up. But that being said, it's a lot of conversations with clients right now about, if you are comfortable with the monthly payment, then I wouldn't wait to get in now, because you can always refinance. But if the monthly payment is over 28 to 30% of your monthly income, then that's something to really consider, because you could be house poor and not be living the lifestyle that you came out here to live because you're so worried about making your monthly payment.
That's a great point. I love that you just said that. And I'm tired of preaching that. So to have it coming from somebody with a completely different background makes me feel really good. We talk to folks about that a lot. And usually when we're working with clients, we have, we have an idea of their budgeting and their assets and things like that. So we have a pretty good feel for like, hey, this is a fine range. But we oftentimes see people go and start looking, and they come back with something that's much higher than that range. I think we're all guilty of that. I've done that with multiple things in my life. But when you're doing a home or a second home or investment project, it just seems like you could get stuck in it for a while, and we don't want that. Now, of course, your market has a lot of liquidity, right? There's a lot of action going on out there, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is a lot of action happening. Boulder is a very small community, in reality. And so the demand is always pretty high here. A lot of people are locked in with lower interest rates currently. And so there isn't as much supply as we would hope for this time of year and for the entire year in general. So we are still having, some multiple offer situations, and things are getting a little bit competitive. And that's really tough when you already have high interest rates. You're already at the top of your price point that you want to spend. So we're seeing a lot of just craziness right now.
At any time there's a sea of change, like the interest rates, right? Things will start to work its way out, but it takes some time. There's a lag.
Right. Right now, people are moving because they have to, not because they want to at this point.
Yeah. In fact, the folks that have to are doing everything they can to hold on to those fixed rates.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, and kind of,
sorry.
That's okay. No, that's all right. So you have dogs in Colorado? Wait a minute.
If you don't have a dog, I don't know who you are.
We won't get into the dog cat thing, but I'm on the dog side, but that's another story. What about, forget about let's put the interest rates aside. What about like common interests, things that, one thing I've noticed, I help. I'm used to Florida, and I'm used to like going and visiting my mother, and I've helped other family members and clients that are in those areas. And what I always think is really a cool thing, if you will, is when I see a group of people that all kind of maybe don't necessarily come from the same location, but they kind of they share values, and they have common interests. They're out there. Oh my gosh. I mean, please tell me there's pickleball in Colorado, because if there's not, I mean,
my neighbors have a custom pickleball court in their backyard that they put in. Well, so yeah, it's a thing.
we were at Amelia Island, and I said to my wife, "This is crazy." I played tennis in high school, and then when I went there, I was like, "Hey, maybe I'll get involved in a pickleball game." And I just watched a few minutes. I said, "These people are intense."
Yeah.
Like they're shouting at each other, they're questioning calls. And I was like, I thought this was like a laid back, friendly game. But the lady goes, "Oh, no, this is league." This is like a lead going on. So I was like, all right, yeah, I'm out.
Too
But
intense.
yeah, exactly. But just going down, like a lot of the places might have a community center, or just places where, like, will you as a realtor work with somebody who's like, hey, I want to go, I'm looking at this area, and do you ask them about, like, what are they interested in, what are their hobbies, activities they're searching for, and then try to say, hey, this place might have everything you're looking for, and start listing that out? Or should they go find that stuff on their own, do their own research?
I mean, a little bit of both, but I mean, that's a lot of why people move here is for their hobbies, being such an outdoor friendly place here. So a lot of people are wanting to be close to either a couple of things. So, if you're looking in Denver, they want to have that little bit of city life. So they want walkability to good restaurants and good shopping and things like that. And if people are specifically looking up here in Boulder, they're wanting trail access or dog parks, or maybe even to the downtown here in Boulder, the walkability on Pearl Street. So there's definitely specific things that people are looking for when they move here. So I can direct them based on those things. If they're looking for communities with amenities such as pools or things like that, then I can definitely direct them in where you might find some of those as well. But we have rec centers, which could be sometimes cheaper than a community with a pool with the monthly HOA fees that we see here. So just depending on specifically what they're looking for, that's really important for me to know ahead of time, just because of where you might possibly want to end up and how close and how far you want to be commuting to those things.
Okay. When you talk about trails, I have to ask this question. Like, so if I'm on trails in Colorado, what am I looking out for? Like, do I need to carry like a sharp stick or something? And I mean, there's wildlife there, right? There's bears in Pennsylvania. So
yeah. Yes. Yeah. So we're summer season, we're getting into snakes. So you could see snakes.
Nice.
Bears, mountain lions, coyotes are really popular, rabbits, but really, yeah. Moose. We have had some moose come into town. I was actually on a hike with my husband and my two dogs, maybe 2 summers ago. And this moose was on this trail super, super low. And we were like all shocked. We're like, is that a moose? It was
They're big.
It was lost. Yeah, it was big and
really?
It was lost.
Okay. Is that why you encourage dogs?
Yeah.
For
my peace of mind, yes, a little bit of safety. I mean, I've seen maybe 2 or 3 bears in the entirety of 10 years that I've been here. Okay. I have not seen a mountain lion, knock on wood. I've seen a bunch of coyotes and snakes and things like that. But the dogs give me a little bit of peace of mind, but I think they might be more scared of those things than I am.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're walking through the zoo.
Yeah.
We have that stuff in Pennsylvania, but I mean, do you carry mace or whatever? That's a whole other topic. So maybe somebody, if they're just moving there, should maybe talk to a couple of the local folks on what I should watch out for.
For sure. The trails are also really popular here. Like, that is why people move here, is for the trail access and the views and the mountains and all that. So you don't not see people on the trails if you're close into town, so you're going to see people, way more people than you're going to see wildlife.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So, all right, I'm looking over my list here. Another topic that I wanted to ask you about, and maybe this is just me, but I think a lot of folks talk about like proximity to healthcare facilities. My doctor, or whether, close to a hospital or some sort of facility, because, well, I'm talking those of us who are in retirement, and we all start thinking about our well-being. So is that something you think about, or that people talk to you about? Like, where are some of those facilities or other key facilities in the area? Is that important, or is that usually everything's within a reasonable distance?
I mean, usually everything's within a reasonable distance here. It's really, I guess, where that might come into play the most is fire departments up in the mountain communities, just with the risk of wildfire. So that's kind of the biggest question I get is, how far is the nearest fire department and things like that. There's usually, hospitals and healthcare facilities pretty close around town, like where it really hasn't been too much of a question. I think the biggest for me, it's like doctors, like how far is my commute to the hospital?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. I get that a lot. What about the seasonality of the state? I think of Colorado, and I think like your what would be our summer is probably winter time for you guys. But then again, your summer is when everybody gets out and does all that hiking as well, right? Like they turn it up a notch.
So I was thinking about this question too, and I'm like, it really depends on what you like. I mean, you can be here all year round and find something to enjoy. So if you are really into the skiing, then this is a great place for you in the wintertime. If you love the sunshine and trails, this is a great time for you in the summertime to be here. So it really depends on what you like. I mean, and that's kind of why I moved here is I love the seasons, but it's a very mellow winter here. So that's really appealing to me. So we get these huge snowstorms and it might be cold and icy and 0 degrees for a week. And then in a couple of days, the snow is completely melted and the trails are dry and you can get back out and run. And yeah, so that was really appealing to me when I moved here because we could have these beautiful snow covered flat irons. And then a few days later, you're back to sunshine and being able to run on the roads. And, coming from the Midwest, that did not happen. So
yeah, I didn't know that. I just assumed once it snowed, it stayed snow. But I mean, up at certain elevations it does, and that's why they're called ski resorts, right?
For sure. Yeah. When you get to above like 9,000 feet, then yes, but we're right around 5,000 feet here between Denver and Boulder, so it's not terrible here.
Well, that was I think that was my next question was about does the altitude in Colorado hurt people or sometimes help them or whatever? I think it depends on their am I asthmatic or do I have other health conditions or whatever? But like I think you just answered my question. Colorado's a pretty diverse state. So there's a lot of altitude or not that much, depending on what you're looking for.
Right. I think the lowest you're going to get is here around 5,000 feet.
Okay.
And then, most of the mountain resorts are around probably 10,000 or so. So it depends. If you do have like asthma or things like that, you could definitely feel it more. I know my dad, he came to visit once and his, the guest room was on the 2nd level and he has pretty bad asthma. So one night he walked down to the 1st level and he's like, I think it's lower elevation down here. So I'm going to sleep on the 1st level because he was having issues with it. So I don't know if that's going to help too much, but
I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at the fact he was having problems. His optimism that would change.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Oh man. How about proximity to airports and things like that? Do people? One of the things that I would think is when I'm trying to choose a destination point, like a retirement home, or certainly a home where I'm spending months away from my other house, I would definitely want a place where it would be easy for family and friends to come visit and come and go. Do people give that much thought?
I think it depends. I think it depends. For me, it's like a lot of like careers that people travel a lot. They care more about that, but there are generally a good number of airports in Colorado that are accessible for people to get to. So we have Denver International Airport, which is, obviously a huge hub. And between, Boulder all the way from like Fort Collins to the Springs, I mean, the longest that drive is like an hour and a half. The Springs itself has an airport. There are some smaller airports when you get closer to the like mountain communities and stuff. But even if you fly into Denver and then drive to Vail or Breckenridge, or that's where your home is, I mean, that's not longer than a couple of hours to the airport. So I don't feel like that's necessarily, a deal breaker or a big determination on what home they're going to purchase.
Gotcha. Complete side story. I was on my way to Breckenridge the day before I left for the week at Breckenridge when I was a young guy. I was so excited about that trip. And I took we went for like a warm-up ski at the local ski resort. Yeah. And I tore my ligaments in my leg and didn't end up going. But the bright side of that was I went to the ER where I met the nurse who turned out to be my wife.
Wow.
So, a little side story there. So
that's very serendipitous, right? What are the chances?
Yeah, I think it is. It was, and it's gone awesome since. So, so someday I'll go to Breckenridge and maybe we'll go out there together. But I really
you never made it back.
I never did. No, I was in Colorado one time when I was a young guy, with my family. But I remember it being gorgeous. And the more we talk, the more I think I really want to go skiing then hit the sauna, and then hit the cold plunge. It seems outdoors, like it just seems like a perfect place for all that stuff.
Definitely.
What about what else is there that you often like that you would think it'd be important for somebody kicking around the idea of moving to Colorado?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it
It's a
depends
very
on kind
broad
of,
question. It's probably an unfair question because it's so
yeah.
broad. But like, what haven't we covered that you think, Bob? I think your folks should know about.
I mean, I think that's really the broad spectrum, right? Is kind of what you're looking for in a lifestyle. Also, one thing I guess to keep in mind is if this is a second home for people, keeping in mind, what options do they have when they're not here for the home, as far as being able to maybe rent it out. So that could be something to think about depending on where the home is. We do have pretty strict short-term rental laws, and it's city by city, so they vary. But it's becoming more and more difficult to short-term rent your property if it's not your primary residence.
Lauren, can you define what short-term versus long-term is? Are we talking like 2 weeks or anything less than 90 days?
A short-term rental is generally defined as anything less than 30 days. And then long-term would be, that 30 to 6 month period, or 6 months or longer, depending on specifically what community you're in. So I know a lot of the mountain town counties have put a moratorium on short-term rentals, period, just because during the pandemic it went crazy, and now they're dealing with some like pricing issues and having affordable housing for the residents that
everybody else
that work there. And yes. So that's something to definitely consider. Is it could be challenging to find, if you didn't need to rent it out, that's something that we would really want to look into and make sure that we had that option because it is harder and harder to do.
It's a really good point. And I think that's being adopted by many, if not most of all the states. I saw it in Florida as well. And so that makes sense to me too. I think if I were a resident there or a homeowner there, I'd want that same kind of vibe. Yeah. I know exactly why that reason is there, or that rule is there. There's unintended consequences that happen. So again, that's one of those things that'll work its way out. Speaking of that, the original reason I wanted to talk to you, but we got into this much more interesting topic about Colorado, but we talked about the new rules that are out there with real estate in general, and the I'm trying to think exactly what the word was of that ruling. It was the
NAR settlement.
Yes. Yeah. And so I think when we talked, and a couple of folks I've spoken to since seem to share your ideas that it'll work itself out over time. But I think this seems to give the good realtors a chance to remain good, if not better, compared to some of the not so wholesome stuff that goes on. I think it gets weeded out with more transparency. Is that how would you describe how you think it's playing out or will play out?
Yeah, so it's nothing's official yet, so it's hard to say exactly how what is going to come of it. But exactly like you said, it's just more transparency, more upfront conversations that probably weren't happening with a lot of realtors and their clients ahead of time. So for me, it's more just the same conversations I've been having. And I don't know, maybe they need a little bit more clarity, but nothing really changes. It's just, providing sellers and buyers with what value I can bring to the table and why they would want me to advocate for them through the home selling or home buying process. But other than that, I mean, nothing really changes as far as what I do or how I do it. So we'll have to see what plays out as far as how commissions are paid and things like that. That's kind of the question that we won't know until it's in play and it's happening. So we need some data. We need 6 months of it to be in play to tell you what's happening.
Right. Yeah, that seems to be the consensus, is there's a lot to work its way out. But I think my very last question, I promise this will be my last question, unless you have questions. What surprised me on my recent trip was I talked to a realtor. So aside from the story of the person that I wasn't impressed with, we met a realtor at dinner one night, and she was fantastic.
Okay.
And we just had a nice casual conversation. And she shocked me by saying, I do 80%. She said roughly 80% of the business, the homes I sell, are through like FaceTime. People getting on their phone and just, I walk through the house with them on the phone, and they say, oh, wait, go back in there and show me those cabinets again. Can you open them up? I want to knock, like various things. But she said, because I have a lot of people buying. Now, this was a Florida person, right? So they have a lot of people buying from long distance that I guess just don't want to take the time and walk it. Or maybe they want to pre-walk it through the FaceTime, and then maybe before they buy it, they go on it. But have you seen an uptick in that, or is that kind of new to you? You're in a different area.
Yeah, I saw most of that during the pandemic. So now I think what's happening is people will come out for a weekend, and they will explore areas in general, and then we will see whatever's, on the market during that weekend. And that might not be the weekend that they find something, but generally people are pretty good about wanting to fly out or come out and see the home before putting in an offer, which I feel much more comfortable about, just because it is really hard to see all the nooks and crannies and the paint chipping and this and that from a FaceTime video. So it's always great if they can come up. I haven't seen too much of the long distance. Mostly, like I said, people will come in for a weekend, and if they have to buy something that weekend, then hopefully what they want is on the market at that time.
Yeah. I'm not to the point where I just need to buy something that weekend, but I'm very old school like that. So maybe it's too old school, but I want to shake your hand. I want you to tell me a story or two about the area. And I've said this on other videos. I think I shared this with you when I called you like a couple of weeks ago to set this up. I'm a big fan of staying there for more than like a weekend or even a week. I say stay there several weeks to a month and get a feel for the community. And maybe you still like the community, but you know what? I hate this side of it over here. All the stuff we really like are walking distance over on the other side. And sometimes you don't have an awesome realtor on your team to tell you that, and you have to figure that out for yourself. So it'd be better to do it before you buy.
Right. And even if it's an area that I love, it might not be the same area that you're going to love. And you don't get to know a place even in a week or a couple of weeks. It can take months to get to know a place. So, when people are coming out here and they've never been here and they want to purchase right away, I always ask, well, have you thought about renting at least for a few months, just to get your bearings about you? Like, I want them to have that option versus feeling forced or rushed into purchasing something and then kind of regretting because they don't like the area or there's something with the home or, whatever it is. So just because now with how, we're not in pandemic days anymore. So if you're purchasing a home here and you want to see appreciation, it's going to be longer than a 2-year period that you're going to have to be in this home. So you want to purchase it more for the long term versus something with a quick turnaround.
Yeah. I think that's why I dig your vibe. I like talking to you because you bring people in for a soft landing rather than try to hard sell.
No, that's not what I like at all. Yeah.
So I would imagine you probably get a lot of referrals from people you've helped get into or sell their homes because they liked your process of thinking about the best way for them to exit and the new person to come in. And so both parties are happy. That makes for a great referral system and business building for you, right?
It really does. I'm very lucky where it's finally come to probably over 90% of my business is referrals at this point in time. So nothing feels better than getting a referral. It's the biggest compliment.
Oh, that's awesome. I know we get those, and that's the greatest way to say it. It's a great compliment. It's a good shot of dopamine.
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of that, I probably regret that I didn't say that you and your husband are like insane. I don't know, maybe you won't say insane runners, but you we were just talking about before we started filming that he just won a race you guys were in and you're running all the time. And I don't know how you do it, but it sounds like you're in the right place for it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's hard to not want to get out, at least for an hour a day and run and get some exercise when you are just looking at the mountains right out your front door. So
and it makes you a happy person, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Sometimes it's hard to get out the door, but I never regret when I've actually done it.
Yes. I just said that this past week. I can tell you most days, the person I was with was like, "Oh, you're going to the gym? I'd love to, but I just don't really, I don't really enjoy the gym." And I said, 80% of the days I don't feel like going. But the cool thing about it is I don't think I've ever left the gym not feeling better than when I walked in.
Right.
Right. It's so I'll take a little level up any day
For sure.
versus sitting home. But anyway, let's make the world healthy, right?
Yeah. And that's why you're moving to Colorado. I mean, you're not going to see a more fit community, I don't think. So
I have to be honest with you. Like I was thinking whenever my time is to do some more snowbirding, that Florida or South would be the best fit for me. But like after this conversation, I am really thinking maybe we should go out and check out Colorado.
I think you should.
People love it. Yeah.
It's a great summer spot for sure.
And I wouldn't even think about it for the summer, but it sounds like it might be even better for me to say. We'll talk after the show. The show, right? Anything else that you think we should know about, or should we wrap it up? I don't want to miss anything that you thought was important that we missed.
No, I think it's just a matter of starting the conversation. You don't know unless you ask. So that's the first thing you can do, and you can see if it's right for you. And if not, then you're going to feel better about knowing one way or the other. That's
a great place to leave it. Lauren Daniels, I appreciate the time you spent. We're going to put your contact information. I don't know how to do it. I don't edit these. Whoever's in our office is going to do that. Tyler and Anna will do an awesome job. And thank you so much for your time. Maybe we can do this again in 6 months or 12 months and see how things are going. I really appreciate it, Lauren. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it.